Hey guys, we're back. New setup, new layout, new format of the podcast a little bit. So we've been going for a while. We've been working on some things on the back end with the business and just making sure all of our ducks are in a row. But we're back. We're back now. I still have the giveaway going on. We're actually close to 100 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. Once we hit 100, you will be entered into a drawing to win a free pair of Raycon headphones. They are really, really good.
They're nice headphones. They're what I use at the gym too. Skylar got me a pair like 6 months
I
ago.
use I use mine like all the time, and she can vouch for that. I use it all the time. Actually,
I have to have him take them off to give him a hug at the end of the day because he's got them around his neck.
it's part of my attire now. But they're really, really good. The battery life on them is awesome. Good noise cancellation. Um, the only thing that I don't like about them, I'm just being upfront with you guys, is when you're on the phone with someone, they can hear everything that's going on in the background. So if you got like music playing in the background, if you're at the gym like I am, and someone calls you, they're going to hear all of that in the background as well. You'll be able to hear the person you're talking to just fine, but they may not be able to hear you as well. I don't. Do
When
you,
I call Skylar at the gym, I can hear the guy in the back of the gym at the squat rack talking on his phone. I mean, it's you, yeah.
yeah. So it. But aside from
What
that,
a
they are.
great advertisement.
Aside from that, they're
Hire
phenomenal.
us.
And we're talking about these. We're talking about these headphones for way too long. So we're not going to do "Am I the Asshole" today. Carrie, I'm gonna actually let you go ahead and
And
say
kind of introduce what we're
say
talking
your
about.
piece.
Okay, so I think for a few different podcasts that Skylar and I have done together, episodes anyway, we have lightly touched on the subject of being caretakers and talking about what happened with my dad, but I kind of always cut off the conversation and I say, well, that's for another podcast. And I kind of make a joke about it.
This is that
And
podcast.
this is that podcast. And Skylar has said to me after, the camera was off and podcast is done and we're getting ready to go about our day, this would have been a good opportunity to talk about this. So we're going to talk about it. First and foremost, Skylar and I are caretakers. If anybody missed that memo, I know that it's not the reason why Skylar got into coaching, but I also know that it's part of his makeup and who he is now, being a caretaker and watching everything that happened with my dad.
Yeah.
So it definitely plays a part into how Mosley coaching got to where it is today.
Do you want to just, I guess, kind of start from the beginning? And you don't have to give every single little detail, but do you want to talk about like what happened with your dad? And honestly, I mean, I guess you could start back to when he first started getting sick when you were.
I could start back to
Yeah.
19 when he was
Yeah, go
when he was
ahead.
born in the 1900s.
Because this man's been through a lot.
Yeah. So wow, and I didn't really prepare how I wanted to tell this story. I just knew that I wanted to tell it. So forgive me if this gets a little muddy.
Okay.
But so my dad was born in the 50s, and I think a lot of people in his generation didn't have the resources that we have now to mental health, to addiction, to what a toxic family life looks like, to the way men and women are treated in our society based off of their gender and those gender roles that they're assigned. There just there wasn't the resources available. I guess that's the best way to put that,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And my dad definitely grew up in a high testosterone, toxic masculinity sort of family. I won't tell his stories because they're his to tell, but it definitely sounds like it was a hard way to grow up. And he struggled with addiction in his teens and his 20s, continues to struggle today, but all different types of drugs, alcohol. And in his I think it was mid 30s, he started to experience symptoms of depression. Bipolar started to sort of be something that was being thrown around of a possibility of what he might have. And he was somebody that I label as like in the 90s, in like the early to mid 90s, somebody that was part of that wave of people that pills were just being thrown at them, but we didn't really know what the pills were going to do yet. And all it did was fuel his addiction problems more. And I grew up, so from when I was very young, I had more of like what you would consider the like nice picture of a family. But by the time that before I was 10, definitely drugs definitely started to rear its ugly head in my household. And as a teenager and into my 20s, my dad had a full blown addiction this is affecting every single area of our home life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 20, oh, when did we meet? I think I was 24.
Uh,
Were
yeah,
we 24
24,
and 25
25.
when we met?
Yeah, around that.
So, regardless, in my mid 20s, I was working at a corporate chain restaurant and I was a closer. So, I would get off really late at night, like 11 or so at night. And it just so happened to be Cinco de Mayo weekend. I had two different parties that I was invited to. And to go home to like change, or to not just go directly to a party, was not something that I was doing in my 20s. I was like, I was going to drink, man, as soon as I got off work, especially so late. And I don't know, something that night, I even had clothes with me and I went home to shower, which I just can't stress enough how weird that was compared to what my normal routine was. So I went home and it was just my dad home, and my mom was away. She was in another state at the time. She was actually just arriving home from the airport around the time that this was all happening. And I got home and my dad was all messed up, slurry. It was drugs, but the best way I could describe it was like if you found somebody that had drank like a bottle of like a fifth of something, just really slurry and droopy and falling over. And because of where we were at that point, I didn't really think anything of it. This was normal. This was just
You're like
like,
typical dad,
yeah, it's just a normal
high and drunk
Tuesday.
off his butt.
Yeah, so, and he had a bedroom at that time, and he was all slurred over in his bed, and I went to get ready, and I went to come back maybe within 5 minutes to let him know that I was leaving. I knew that my mom was going to be home in like an hour maybe, because again, she had just landed from the airport that's not too far from our house. And I found him and he was down. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but I saved my dad's life that night. I gave my mom a call. She was able to make an hour drive in like 25 minutes. I still to this day don't know how she didn't get I mean, honestly, I don't know how she didn't get herself killed with how quickly she would have had to have drove up the highway and through some back roads to get to me
Mm-hmm.
by the time that the ambulance and the police were there with my dad and myself. But anyways, that then started, that night changed the rest of my life, and Skylar didn't know that it was going to change his life. It changed my mom's life. It changed everything in our family. And we met 3 weeks after that incident, 4 weeks tops. It was like within a month that
Yeah,
you and I
definitely. I think
met.
it was a month. Yeah.
Yeah, so as Skylar has previously mentioned, he got out of a significantly toxic relationship right before we met, and he started working out with his cousin. That's part of his testimony for Mostly Coaching.
Yeah.
So at the same time that was happening in his life, and we were so close to meeting, but we hadn't met yet. So that was happening in his life, and then this is what was going on in my life. And for the next 4 months, of which I would meet Skylar a month into those 4 months, for the next 4 months of my life, pretty much every single day, and when I say pretty much, I really mean pretty much every single day, was long hours spent at the hospital and the nursing home. And that was a lot of talking. Would
No,
you?
you're fine. Go ahead. I mean, you're telling the story.
Yeah,
So
no, I know.
yeah.
There's just a lot of talking. I don't know. Have I missed any important
No.
parts of this, do you think? Not yet. Okay.
And if you miss anything, it's totally normal. It's okay. You're not
Yeah.
gonna be able to cover everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that this was almost 10 years ago too.
Mm-hmm.
This all happened in 2014. So wow, yeah, we're less than a year away from it. Yeah, the 10-year reunion. But anyways, in those so in the first like week or two, they told my mom and I to plan a funeral, that my dad was going to die. And we didn't, because this man, I mean, I've spent
Resilient as hell.
I I call it, like, this is such a bad joke, a dark joke, but like he's a cockroach person. He just
Pretty
there
much.
are some people that are just like, how can you continue living the way that you do and you still come out of
And
it?
like prior to this happening, like he's gotten sick from other things. Like what
Yeah,
was
that's what I was gonna say. He's been in and out of the hospital
fr-
literally since I was 7 years old. It's crazy. I know the ins and outs of the local hospitals like nobody's business, because I feel like I half grew up there thanks to a lot of my dad's ailments.
but yeah, this man is he's very resilient, but keep going.
So we didn't plan the funeral for reasons that Skylar and I just explained. And they came back to us and they said, no, seriously, you need to plan services. This is the date that we're going to, pull his plug. And that date just so happened to be Mother's Day of that year. And my mom felt like there was no way she could do that to her mother-in-law, my dad's mother, who was still alive at this point. So that bought him one extra day. And in that one extra day, we started to see a little bit of eye flutter, a little bit of eye movement. And that snowballed into him coming home 4 months later. But when he came home, he the insurance released him. The hospital didn't release him. So when he came home to us, my mom and I have absolutely no medical education whatsoever. And he was still on a trach that we had to, I forget what we had to do for it now because it's been so long, but we had to do something. There was daily care with the trach, and I don't remember what it is anymore, but I know we had to do something with the trach. That had to be learned in a matter of 24 hours. And then he was also on a peg in his stomach. So we had to learn how to crush up his pills and give those to him in a tube and also give him his water in a tube. Like literally no medical experience, and 24 hours later you are keeping your parent alive after your own traumatic experience of finding them and saving their life.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you really don't have a choice but to figure it out and
Yeah,
make it work.
because insurance said, well, he's not getting better, so he's got to go.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's now that is another podcast. but anyways, so Skylar and I were getting to know each other around that time. And he went one time to meet my dad in the nursing home. That's where Skylar met my dad, was in a nursing home. And I remember that day for me was hard because my dad and I kind of had a routine. At the nursing home, I would wheel him from his room and we would go outside and I would comb his hair for him. I would wash his face off with a washcloth. There was like this dry shampoo stuff that I would use for him. And I would just do a lot of care for him outside in the sun. I would read to him. And we didn't even really know each other. And I invited you to that time. And not to throw anybody under the bus, it's just the truth of the fact, none of my friends, unless I'm having like traumas blocking a memory, I don't remember any of my friends going to see my dad, but you did. And that stuck out to me. And then when dad came home and he was on the peg and the trach, you would come over. I was getting off of Chili's at like 11 or midnight. And I would come home and be his night nurse. I would take care of his things while my mom was sleeping to wake up early for work. And you would come over and you would sit with us for like 2 hours. Then you would go home and wake up early yourself for work. So you were probably only getting like 3 or 4 hour nights of sleep. And like we didn't even like you didn't even know me. I didn't know you. So anyways, that's kind of the origin story of how Skylar and I became caretakers. And then it's just been 9.5 years of taking care of him. He's had quite a few strokes since he came home. Skylar actually saved him. I think, again, excuse me because trauma sort of blocks memories, but off the top of my head there have been two close calls that were close enough for me to say he truly almost died, and that was the night that he fell, and then this recent incident that we had at the restaurant.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to talk about the night that he fell at all, if you remember
Are you
that.
talking about when he fell coming up the steps and your mom called for us? Or is
No, I
that when
mean,
he fell?
that
Oh,
one
when he fell in the living
when he
room.
fell in the living room. We've had a few falls and they're all really scary, but they all haven't been
That's when he
life
hit his head
threatening.
on the wall, right?
So the one that Skylar just mentioned when he fell on the steps, that was really scary, but it wasn't life threatening. It was scary, but we caught him in time, thank goodness. But the one that I'm talking about, go ahead, Skylar, you know now.
I don't remember it all. I just know that was your mom trying to get him to stand up to go to the bathroom,
And he was starting to lose his
and he
gait,
was losing his
his
gait,
balance.
and he fell, and he's hit. He left like the wall needed repaired. Like he hit his head that hard on the
It looked
wall,
like somebody took like a volleyball or a basketball
and
or a
just like
soccer ball, like that type size ball,
threw it really hard at the
threw
wall.
it into the wall with like lead in it or
Enough
something.
force to crack it and put a hole in it, pretty
It put a
much.
hole in the wall bigger than a grapefruit. His head, his skull.
But yeah, and luckily I was around to to help to get him back up. But some of the, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of issues that he has because of the stroke that he had when she found him and saved him. His motor skills are shot, so he can't feed himself.
We
He's
take
not.
him to the bathroom.
Yeah, we take him to the bathroom. He's not totally blind. All right, so we think he's kind of playing us because this man.
Hold on, stop. Oh, before you tell his secret, stop. So he has what's considered cortical blindness. Technically, he's been to many, many eye doctors over the course of the last decade,
Yeah.
and his eyes are fine. So, like, yes, Skylar's right. His eyes are fine.
So he doesn't know. He
technically
doesn't know.
speaking.
He doesn't know what I look
It's a
like.
brain injury.
He can like see I guess like an image of me, like the form of
He
me.
can see like your aura. Like
My aura,
he
yeah.
can kind of see like he can see that there's a person there.
But this man will be out and about, and he'll be like, we'll be driving at night or whatever, and he'll be like, oh, there's a lot of stars out tonight, or the sky is really pretty. I'm
and
like,
we're like, oh,
what? Like, how are you? Like,
are
how
there a
you
lot of
seeing
stars
this?
out tonight? I remember one time, this is back, so when his accident happened, he had like a big pickup truck, and we eventually got rid of it. We didn't need it, but we kept it for like a year or two.
Oh, I know where you're going
Just
with this.
just out of consideration to him. And when something like this happens, you don't really know what to expect, especially in those first like 5 years. Are they gonna have this like miracle come around? Are they gonna go the other way? Are we gonna lose them? You just don't know. So we held on to the truck for a while, and I borrowed it one time, and I brought it back. Now
And
this
he
is
knew.
this is a blind man that I'm like peg tube feeding. He's got a trach, the whole nine, can't see, and he's like, wow, you brought home back my truck. It's pretty dirty. And it was like, is it? Is it dirty? That's interesting that you can see that.
We question sometimes whether or not he really can see, or if he's just playing us.
I think what it is, he definitely can't see. He has cortical blindness, which means that the brain is not processing the image correctly and then shooting it out to his eye, which is absolutely the scientific way to describe that. Shooting it out his eye. It's in every single science book. But so anyways, yes, he's definitely what I would call 24/7 care.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, he needs 24/7 care. He needs someone watching him pretty much all the time, taking him to the bathroom, feeding him, bathing him, changing his clothes, all that jazz. And living with that, it changes. I don't know. At least for me, it changes
so much.
It changes the way that you view
everything.
And I think being introduced to that and then living with it, becoming a caretaker myself, it like really reinforced for me how important taking care of yourself is. And I know that there's things that are outside of our control sometimes. There's health issues that we just cannot control.
But we're not talking about that though.
No, we're talking about the things that are
we're talking
in our
about
control,
preventable
things. And just seeing how he's lost his independence and how he can't live this life. I mean, he's still young and he can't live. He's young when it happened and he's still young now. He can't live his life really. He's kind of, I guess, bedridden for the most part. He spends a lot of his days, listening to his books while he's laying in his bed or he's sitting in his chair. And, you just see that and you live with it, and it just kind of opens your eyes to being like, okay, maybe I need to do what I need to do for myself so I don't not only put myself in that situation, but have my family have to take care of me like that, to that extent. And it's just, I don't know. It's just been a real game changer for me in terms of just how I view health and how I view health longevity, and how important it is. I think that, we start taking care of yourself now so you don't have to worry about that stuff later. But yeah, it's definitely changed my viewpoint a lot when it comes to taking care of yourself and your independence. And I don't really like using the word being a burden to your family because it has like a lot of negative connotation to it. But I guess that's essentially what it is being a burden. And we don't want to be a burden to our family members or anything like that. So,
Yeah, that's a fun. I mean, I don't. I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
I don't consider my dad a burden. It's such, you know how we always say things weren't black and white. There's just so many gray areas to so many things.
Hmm.
It's really unfortunate that things happened the way that they happened, but I'm also grateful that they happened how they happened.
Yeah.
Um, I think another really big part of this story, another big piece to kind of understand a little bit more how a person could get to the point of becoming addicted to something, um, is so my dad, I have a sister, and I have a half sister. She was born, let's see if I was born, she was born in the 70s. I was born in the 80s. She was born in the 70s. And when I was growing up, my dad and my sister's mother, who I'm not related to, they did not have a good co-parenting relationship. Um, I don't want to get too into it because it's their story,
Hmm.
but I was affected by their relationship by not having a relationship with my sister. So I didn't really know her, but I knew that my dad loved her and I knew that she loved me. And when I was 14 and when my sister was 28, she was murdered. And it's actually highlighted on a ID channel show. Um, I don't want to get too into it or give too many details, but he would have been, let's see, if she was 28, he was probably in his he was in his early 50s, late 40s when it happened. And to miss your child so much, to not have a relationship with them, to have a strained relationship with them, and then to never be able to see them again really fueled his addiction.
Hmm.
I remember my sister's funeral, and I remember how messed up my dad was on pills that day. And I was too young to know to be embarrassed, and I was too young to know what was really going on. I was 14 at the time, but you also surprisingly know a lot too as a teenager. Like there's a lot that you could pick up on. So I knew something wasn't right, but I
Right.
didn't. But anyways, I think that also had a lot to do.
With pushing his addiction into overdrive. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
imagine that. And then was he diagnosed with bipolar?
Yes.
So you got
Oh, and he's also the one thing that I forgot to mention when I said he was in and out of hospitals my whole life. He's also a survivor of he had
he had cancer, didn't he?
he had cancer while he also had double pneumonia.
Yeah, I thought it was double in mine.
Double
I think it was
pneumonia
thinking like
and
is
cancer at the
walking
same
bronchitis. Is
time.
that a thing? Or is that
This all happened in the late 90s, so
yeah?
I don't exactly remember. I know that when this podcast is done, my mom's going to be like, "It was this and this and this and this and
So
this."
like, but that's what I mean earlier about him being resilient. Like he had all these other issues that happened to him,
And he's a vet. He's a
and
Vietnam vet.
he was in the Navy. But I think you're right. The addiction, and then the the upbringing, his parents, definitely plays a huge part. Um, the bipolar, and then losing your daughter.
Yeah, this situation with my dad becoming a caretaker, of course, I see and have and agree with what you're talking about with the physical lessons.
Hmm.
But for me, the most important thing is, and I don't know how to make this part of a platform, but forgiveness. You know, I was so angry with my dad without knowing it when all of this happened. And I can remember a fight that we got into in the earlier years of you and I dating and of becoming a caretaker to my dad. And at the height of a fight, I remember screaming at him, "I wish I never would have saved your life." And that I think is the worst thing I've ever said to another person in my life. And he said, "I wish you wouldn't have saved me either." And it took about 2 years, but I sat him down and I apologized to him for that. And he apologized to me for upbringing and stuff that happened when I was a kid. And I wish that more people knew what it was like on the other side of forgiveness, and to really have compassion for somebody, and to try to understand where they're coming from and where they've been. Because the thing is, you could look at somebody that's older than you and say you should know better because you're 50, but guess what, it's their first time being 50, just
Yeah.
like it's your first time being in your 20s or in your teens or in your
Yeah.
30s. We're all doing life for the first time, no matter what stage of life you're in. This is the first time that any of us are doing it, and the only time. So just to have more compassion, I think, is the number one thing that I learned throughout this. And I think because of everything that you and I have learned, that has made Mosley coaching more of a compassionate and understanding business. Because when we first started, it was very like, get your muscles in the gym. And now it's like, hey, buddy, we should work on that too, because physical health is so important. And I've seen a testimony to why it's so important to work on preventative health. But also, I've seen what it's like if you don't work on your mental health. And that's why I wanted to talk about my dad today.
You did a good job.
Thanks.
But no, I think you're right, because you really don't know anyone's backstory. You don't know what they've gone through or
You
anything
don't,
like
and you
that.
can probably make some general assumptions, and 9 times out of 10 be right, but you still
You still don't know the full
know
picture.
everything. Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think we could, as a country in whole, be more compassionate with each other, um, and less judgmental. There's a lot of judging that goes on, especially obviously on social media and whatnot. Even honestly in person as well too. It's no different in social media or in person. People are just going to judge you because that's just what we do as humans. But you you have to have compassion, and there's got to be compassion there. And I think being able to kind of step outside of yourself and, I don't know, get to know the person. You may not know their whole backstory from the first time talking to them, but that's something that you can work up to. But it still goes back to, don't you can't judge people because you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what their upbringing has been like. You don't know what struggles or trials or tribulations they've gone through to get to where they are. So I completely agree with you 100% on
Yep. Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
that.
It's been quite a journey. When Skylar and I met, it probably took him about a month to tell me about his brother. And at that time,
uh,
and at that time, I finally felt comfortable enough telling him about my sister. It's weird. I go through periods of time where I talk about her a lot. I talk about her on social media, and then I'll go radio silent for a few years. And there have been people that have met me in my life during those years of radio silence that then I start to talk about it again, and I give them whiplash, and I don't mean to. But anyway, I had told Skylar about it, and he had shared with me that he lost his brother, and I was in just such a guarded trauma place that
she didn't believe me.
I didn't believe him. I thought he was lying to me. I, I can remember being in that place, but now that it's been almost 10 years, I can't really rationalize it anymore. But yeah, that was such a what a 6 months when we met. And I know every couple feels like they've got an incredible story. And you know what? They do. This is just our story, and
Yeah.
it's also incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth telling. And like I said in the very beginning, it absolutely ties into the Mosley coaching story.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, being with you, living, being a caretaker for your dad, helping your mom out, watching you go through your own mental health journey, it's definitely made me more of a compassionate person, and being able to see outside of myself and understand that everyone has their own circumstances that they're going through, and it's not going to be whatever someone's working on, whatever they're trying to do. It's not going to be just because it was linear for me doesn't mean it's gonna be linear for them or anything like that. So it's definitely helped me become a better coach with being understanding that ain't no one perfect. Ain't no one perfect. It was you just gotta try, just try to be your best, and I think that's all you can really ask for. Out of people that you care about, out of anyone really, is just try your best. So
Do you feel like, as a person that most likely, for the most part, would identify as neurotypical, that this has been an interesting journey to be with people that are neurodivergent?
that's a topic for another pot. No, I'm just joking. um, I don't know, because I honestly I feel like we all have our neurodivergent tendencies. I think
Oh, we do, but
some. Are you talking about more on the spectrum or?
I just mean like for example, you, although you have been anxious, and I would never discount
Oh,
that.
like you mean like anxiety?
Yeah, like, because there are different things at play
Yeah.
in this household. I don't want to necessarily list them all off, but you have been exposed, I think, not that there are things that have gone on in your own social circles and families. I was just curious, being a part of somebody else's family, as somebody who is a little bit more neurotypical, like, you entered a family with an active running addict, and
Yeah,
then you
so
saw how it affected me and all of the diagnoses that I got.
yeah, and this is not my first rodeo with being with someone who is neurodivergent,
No, it's not.
So my ex 2 or 3 exes ago,
We're not list that's I'm
um,
so sorry. We're
I
not listing people
I'm
off
not
either.
saying their names, but I'm trying to think how many exes ago this was. I think it was 2 or 3. I
Skylar has
think.
so many
Oh
exes.
my God,
He's
stop.
he's.
But either way, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So it wasn't my first time being with someone who is neurodivergent,
And you two
and
are still friends and friendly,
we're still
right?
friends,
I
yeah.
thought so.
And she went through her own thing. She got diagnosed with leukemia. And we had broken up shortly before that, I believe, but I was still around to kind of support her and be there for her. Um,
Because he's a good guy.
but I don't know. And maybe this is just me. If I don't know something, normally I like to read up on it so I have a better understanding of it. So when I was with my ex and, I found out that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I was like, okay, this is new to me. Like, let me read up on this and see what I can do, like, to be a better partner. Um, and it's no different then than it is today. You've been going through when you went through your mental health journey, and you were diagnosed with these things. I'd start reading. I'd start reading to see again how to be a better partner, to watch out, for things that may trigger anything or anything like that. And I'm going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. But I think I don't know. I think being with you, being with my ex at the time, and being around your family today, it just gave me, I don't know, it's a appreciation and newfound knowledge for, I don't know, it's mental health in
I think this
general.
made you more
Maybe,
well-rounded as a
yeah,
coach.
yeah,
And I think that, not just because of my family, but you as a person, and taking the time to research things and understand where somebody else is sitting at the table, I think that has made you a more well-rounded person as well. I think you're a better friend. I think you're a better family member, and not just to, like, me and my family, but to your family
yeah,
as well. To our family.
yeah.
There we go.
I just want to be the best me for my people. That's all. So
For my people.
for my people. But I think we've talked way too long.
We
Oh
might
my
have
God, we've talked way too
we
long.
might have to split this into two parts.
No, we don't have to. It's just going to be a long, long podcast. But
If you
um,
made it this far, thank you so much for listening. But
yeah,
I think
thanks.
that getting all of that out into the world definitely helps you understand Mosley coaching a lot better.
Helps them understand mostly coaching, and it helps them understand you a
Yep.
little bit better too.
Yep.
So
Lucky them.
thank you for opening up like that. I actually wasn't expecting you to talk about Randy, so that's kudos to you for doing that.
That's
'Cause
my sister's name, Randy.
I know it may seem easy because we're doing it and just talking and y'all just watching, but talking about this stuff on here can be hard sometimes because you have to be really vulnerable, and you know how judgmental people are. So those are things to think about. But I'm really proud of you for
Thank
doing that.
you.
But we're going to end the episode here because I don't want this to be an hour-long episode. That's way too long. That's way too much editing. I don't want to do that. So we're going to stop it here. The format moving forward with the podcast is kind of pretty much going to be similar to this. We're going to still do Am I the Assholes as well. And I'll still talk about fitness and lifestyle and stuff, but it's just going to be like a whatever we feel like talking about for the podcast. Like that's pretty much what it's going to be moving forward. I'm not doing any set in stone things or anything like that. I like having the freedom to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And you guys are more welcome to listen to if you want to, if you don't have to, and if you don't want to, that's okay too.
And there is a section on our website if you want to hear us talk about something or give a hot take on
Oh
something.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
request on our website under the podcast
Mosley
portion.
Coaching, www.mosleycoaching.com. Go check it out. Awesome website. She created it. But yeah, if you guys have any topics that you want us to talk about, you can either leave it in the comment below. You can DM me. You can go to the website and request a topic. And if it's something that we have no idea what it is, we'll do our research.
He's available.
Oh, I want to start doing trending stuff too. We're going to start doing trending stuff too. Yes. Cool. Alrighty. You done?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. With that being said, let's Mosley.